Simsalabim, kids, and happy daylight savings. That time of year when we lose an hour of sleep, gain an hour of sunlight, and spring forward into what will hopefully be a bright and happy future. And for those of you hoping for a future in the business of film and film analyzation, today I thought I'd teach you a little bit about my craft as a film critic. And what better way to do so than to tear apart Disney's latest offering, Oz, the Great and Powerful. Now, as a prequel to a classic film, we, as film critics, are required by the Film Critic's Oath to compare the film mercilessly to its predecessor. We are not allowed to take into account the fact that we first experienced the original Wizard of Oz when we were 3 or 4 years old. A time in our lives where its magical imagery, two-dimensional archetypical characters, fast-paced, easy-to-follow plot, and catchy sing-song musical numbers were the most stimulating things for our hardly developed brains. Now, we also have to keep in mind that this family feature from 1939, which we all hold so near and dear to our hearts, or lack thereof, is a classic. And as a classic, this film is automatically on storytelling par with any other classic, such as The Godfather, or Lawrence of Arabia, or Argo. So why should we go into this new film expecting, no, requiring, anything less than the level of impact that those films have had on us over the years? And this is why I absolutely have to agree with all of the critics coming out of the woodwork saying that Oz the Great and Powerful is a big ol' steaming pile of magicless garbage. That's right, you heard me correctly. And let me explain why to you, using quotes from many other more highly esteemed film critics than myself. For instance, Richard Roeper gave the film a rotten score on Rotten Tomatoes, attacking the film's visual style by stating, "It might have been more interesting if Raimi, the film's director, had attempted to shoot an Oz prequel using only the tools available to Victor Fleming and King Vidor in the late 1930s. I agree, Richard. Disney should have forgone its supply of visually dazzling, cutting-edge technology to instead create an art house prequel to The Wizard of Oz. Because who needs a colorful, beautiful, magical rendition of what that wondrous world over the rainbow looks like? Victor Fleming and King Vidor didn't. That's why when shooting the original Wizard of Oz, they only used tools that would have been available to them 70 years earlier, like a zoopraxiscope. And that's what those guys did instead of going off and using the most up-to-date cinematic technology of the time, like, I don't know, color. Another critic that I couldn't agree more with is Christy Lemire of the Associated Press. Her issue with the film wasn't the visual style, but rather the emotional impact, or lack thereof, that it would have on every single audience member who went to see the movie. She states, quote, "Oz the Great and Powerful aims for nostalgia in older viewers who grew up on The Wizard of Oz and still hold the classic dear, while simultaneously enchanting a newer, younger audience. It never really accomplishes either successfully." And at 40 years old, Christy Lemire is the best source for knowing whether or not the film would successfully enchant a younger and newer viewer. I, for one, know that the birthday party who exited the theater with me after the showing, containing 20 or so kids and 10 or so adults raving about the film, were just an illusion concocted by the sugar coursing through my veins because before the movie at the concession stand I couldn't choose between pretzel M&Ms and new sour dots. But it's not just the fact that this movie is completely void of anything visually interesting, or the fact that the magic in this film is appealing to no one. The absolute worst part of Oz the Great and Powerful is the fact that it was good. Randy Myers was one of several top critics on Rotten Tomatoes who gave the film a rotten score and stated something along the lines of, "Oz the Great and Powerful is entirely serviceable family entertainment. Problem is, serviceable doesn't quite cut it when you're talking about the magical land of Oz." Exactly, exactly! Kids, if you remember only one thing that I said during today's review, remember this. The definition of good ceases to be the definition of good if the definition of good is placed within proximity of the definition of great. For example, I thought the movie was good. Very good. I thought that the visual portrayal of Oz was as vast and terrifying and enchanting and magical as it would be if it existed in real life. I thought that the cast of characters were lovable and mostly well cast, and I found the plot to be engaging and funny and scary in all of the places that it really counted. However, due to the movie critic bell curve, where good in relation to great automatically equals putrid, I know that I couldn't have possibly, even for a minute, have enjoyed this film. But hey, don't take my word for it. Oz opened this weekend in nearly 4,000 theaters. So go ahead, find one near you and take a gander at this atrocity.